the Benzais spin-out move, or production if you want to call it that. Looks like the card is just shooting right out of the middle of the deck, and it's a pretty easy thing to do. So let's go ahead and learn how to do it. Now, I couldn't really find much on John Benzais, who this is credited to. The only thing that I really could find was that he died pretty early, and of course he's had other stuff that he's either created or at least been credited to. But this is definitely one of the more popular moves, at least for table work, just because it does look especially nice, and as you can see, I can get the card to shoot out very far without much effort at all. The card doesn't really shoot out of the middle, like it should look, but instead shoots out of the top. So I'm going to show you how it looks like with the card turned over, and then we'll talk about it a little more. And other than that, I'm not really going to go into false shuffling and cutting. I'll give you some quick tips on how to just keep that card at the top if you're going to riffle shuffle. But that's some material for another video later on. So other than that, let's go ahead and get into the Benzais spin out. So I'm going to show you and kind of talk about the action as I go through it pretty slow, and then we'll go into a little more detail about it. Now, obviously the card is kept on top, and again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But basically the way that I learned how to do it is that I'm going to undercut with my right hand. And as I do that, it's almost like a slip cut, which my index finger of my right hand that's undercutting is going to also drag this card a little bit, so that now that there's this gap of space here, that card is still contacting my middle finger here, so that it has a pivot point if I push forward with my index finger. So if I cut slowly and drag that card, you don't want to drag it completely square with this pack, just a little bit. And as I come across like this, my wrist is going to do a little flick like this, and that card gets pushed out with my index finger at the same time. Now, it's not a very, you don't need to do that very forcefully, but that is what gets the spinning action, is my finger pulling and a little flick of the wrist. It's kind of hard to do slowly, but it should look something like that. And of course, the more you flick your wrist, and if you use a little more force on your finger, you will get the card to fly very far. So now, while that basic action isn't very hard to do, there are a few subtleties that you can do to help really sell the illusion of it coming out of the middle of the pack. It can look good if the cards are just split in this motion and the card spins out. I'll give you an example, something like that. It can look good like that, but to me personally, I feel that if you lift up on the pack, for me, my left-hand packet, as I do the spin out, my left hand will just lift up on that packet. So if I do it very slowly, you'll see that the left-hand packet gets lift up just a hair after that card shoots out. But done up to speed, you won't really be able to tell that. So if I'll show you very slowly, it looks like this. It should look good either way, but this is just a little fine point that I think really makes it look as if the card is coming out from the middle. So it's just a little timing thing. As soon as this clears, your left hand just lifts up, just like that. So just play around with it and see what works for you. And that's really all there is to it. Besides the little point of lifting up the left-hand pack so it looks like the card is coming out of the middle even more. There is another thing that I like to do right before I do the actual pop-out move, and that's to, with my thumbs, riffle up behind here. So if I were to give it a little shuffle, and then I riffle, it's almost, to me, it seems like I'm just kind of quickly glancing through and almost finding that card somewhere in the center before I shoot that card out of the pack. I did say that I'd show you a little bit of how to keep this card at the top. If you already know how to do a table riffle shuffle, if you haven't already found out, it's a pretty easy thing to keep up to one or even a whole block of cards at the top of the riffle shuffle. Say that the top half gets cut over here so that the card I want to control is right here. It's a very easy thing to do as you riffle shuffle. Just make sure that this side gets dropped last. And again, you can do that if you cut it to the left so that you can kind of alternate between which half goes on top. And like I said, you can do that pretty easily with a whole block of cards, so it doesn't just have to be this one. Other than that, all the false cuts and shuffles are just going to be on another video later on, but that's a pretty simple way to control the card and keep it at the top. So hopefully you guys enjoy this and have fun with it.